When Daniel finds a sealed letter tucked inside his late grandmother's Bible, the one she clutched in her final moments, he expects a prayer or perhaps a blessing for his recent marriage. Instead, the trembling handwriting reveals a genealogical nightmare that will unravel 5 years of matrimony. His wife Emma isn't just his soulmate and the mother of his child, she's also his first cousin, and everyone in both families has known since before the wedding, but chose silence over truth. The Bible was old, ancient really. The leather cover was cracked and soft with age, the pages yellowed and fragile, marked with decades of careful underlining and marginal notes in his grandmother's spidery handwriting. Daniel Foster held it carefully, reverently the way Grandmother Rose had taught him when he was a boy. "This is God's word," she'd say. "You handle it with respect." Rose Foster had died 3 days ago at 92, peacefully in her sleep, with this very Bible on her nightstand. She'd been reading it hours before her death, the nurse said, had marked a passage in Leviticus about forbidden relationships. Daniel had assumed it was just her daily devotional reading. Rose had been religious her entire life, reading scripture every morning without fail for 7 decades. Now, sorting through her belongings in the house where she'd lived for 60 years, Daniel understood that her final scripture reading hadn't been devotional. It had been confession. The letter had been pressed between the pages of Leviticus, chapter 18. The verses about not marrying close relatives, about keeping bloodlines separate, about the abominations that came from mixing family too closely. Daniel had found it while looking through Rose's Bible for verses to include in the memorial service tomorrow. The envelope was thin, the paper expensive but old. His name was written on the front in his grandmother's careful cursive, "For Daniel, to be opened after I'm gone. May God forgive me for my silence. May God forgive me." Those 4 words should have been warning enough, should have made Daniel put the letter down, walk away, preserve his ignorance. But he didn't. He opened it. And the first sentence destroyed his life. "Daniel, my beloved grandson, I'm writing this to confess the terrible sin I've committed through my silence. 5 years ago, when you brought Emma to meet the family, when you told us you'd fallen in love and planned to marry her, I recognized her immediately. She is your first cousin, your father's brother's daughter, and I said nothing." The words seemed to pulse on the page. First cousin, father's brother's daughter, Emma, his wife, his soulmate, the mother of his 3-year-old daughter, Lily, the woman he'd been married to for 5 years, the woman he'd built his entire adult life around, his cousin. Daniel read the sentence again, then again, trying to make the words mean something different, trying to find a loophole, a mistake, an error in his grandmother's failing memory. But the handwriting was steady, the words were clear, and they kept right on destroying everything. He was sitting in Rose's bedroom, surrounded by the artifacts of her long life. Photographs covered every surface, children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren spanning 9 decades. Daniel knew these photos, had grown up seeing them at every family gathering. There was his father as a young man, handsome in his army uniform. There was his Uncle James. Daniel's breath caught. Uncle James, his father's brother, the one who'd left home at 18 and never come back, the one the family didn't talk about, the black sheep who'd caused some unnamed scandal and been effectively erased from family history. Daniel had asked about him once as a teenager. His father had gone quiet and tense. James made choices, bad choices. We don't discuss it. That was all. No details, no explanation, just silence and a clear message that the topic was forbidden. Emma had a similar story, an absent father who'd left before she was born, a mother who refused to discuss him. "He was a mistake," Emma's mother Carol would say. "We moved on." Emma had never known her father's name, had never seen a photograph, had grown up believing he was just some random man her mother had a brief relationship with. Except he wasn't random. He was James Foster, Daniel's uncle, his father's brother, which made Emma his first cousin, made their marriage illegal in most states, made their daughter Lily the product of incest, even if it was unknowing incest. Daniel's hands started shaking. The letter fluttered. He forced himself to keep reading even though every instinct screamed at him to stop, to burn it, to pretend he'd never found it. "I recognized Emma the moment I saw her," Rose had written. "She has James's eyes, his smile, the same stubborn chin that marked all the Foster men. I knew immediately who she was, who her father had to be. But I said nothing because I was a coward, because I didn't want to destroy your happiness, because I thought maybe no one else would notice. Someone else had noticed, obviously, because Emma's mother Carol had been at the wedding, had seen Daniel's family, had seen Daniel's father, her former lover's brother, had made the connection, and had also said nothing. How many people knew? How many relatives had looked at Daniel and Emma at their wedding and understood the truth? How many had smiled and congratulated them while secretly knowing they were celebrating an abomination? The letter continued in Rose's careful handwriting, each word another nail in the coffin of Daniel's marriage. Your father knows. He figured it out when Emma came to dinner that first time. He saw her face, and he knew. He tried to talk to me about it privately, wanted to tell you, but I begged him not to. I said it would destroy you, that you loved Emma so much, finding out would break you. He argued with me for weeks, but in the end, he kept silent. For you, because he loves you. His father knew. Frank Foster, the man who'd taught Daniel about integrity and honesty, the man who'd preached about always doing the right thing no matter how hard. He'd known his son was marrying his own cousin and had said nothing. Daniel felt sick. He pressed his hand against his mouth, fighting the urge to vomit. His entire family had betrayed him, had let him marry Emma, had let him have a child with her, had maintained the lie for 5 years while watching Daniel build his life on a foundation that shouldn't exist. Emma's mother knows too. Carol recognized your father at the wedding. She pulled me aside, told me she needed to leave, that seeing the Foster family was too painful. I convinced her to stay, to keep quiet. I told her you and Emma deserved happiness, that the past didn't matter, that God would forgive our silence. God would forgive our silence. Rose had written those words but hadn't believed them. That's why she'd written this letter. That's why she'd left it in Leviticus, in the chapter about forbidden relationships. She'd known her silence was sin, had known she was condemning Daniel and Emma to live a lie, and she'd done it anyway. I told myself I was protecting you, the letter continued, that what you didn't know couldn't hurt you, but that was a lie. I was protecting myself. I was protecting our family's reputation. I was avoiding the difficult conversation, the pain, the scandal. I chose comfort over truth, and I've regretted it every day since your wedding. Daniel stood abruptly, knocking over the chair he'd been sitting in. The letter fell from his hands. He couldn't read anymore, couldn't process. His mind was spinning, trying to reconcile everything he thought he knew with this devastating new reality. He and Emma had met at a coffee shop 6 years ago. She'd been reading a book he loved. He'd commented on it. They'd started talking. By the end of the conversation, he'd known she was special. By the end of their first date, he'd known he wanted to marry her. It had felt like fate, like the universe conspiring to bring them together. They'd laughed about how easily they connected, how perfectly they fit. It's like we're made for each other, Emma had said. Like we're family. Like we're family. She'd said it metaphorically, romantically, not knowing it was literal truth. Daniel walked to the window and looked out at the neighborhood where he'd grown up. Normal houses, normal families, people living normal lives built on normal foundations. Not on lies and secrets and incestuous relationships. No one had the courage to stop. Daniel's phone buzzed. Emma calling, probably wondering where he was. He'd told her he'd be home by noon. It was past 3 now. He'd been sitting in his grandmother's house for hours, staring at the letter, trying to make sense of the unsensible. He let it go to voicemail. He couldn't talk to her, couldn't hear her voice saying, "I love you," the way she did every time they spoke. Couldn't pretend everything was normal when nothing would ever be normal again. The voicemail notification appeared. He listened, despite himself. "Hey babe, just checking on you. I know sorting through Grandma Rose's things is hard. Take your time. Lily and I made cookies. We saved you some. Love you. Lily," his daughter, his beautiful 3-year-old daughter with Emma's dark curls and his green eyes, the child they'd created in love and innocence, the child who was the product of first cousins. What did that mean for Lily? Daniel's mind immediately went to genetic disorders, birth defects, the complications that came from inbreeding. He'd learned about it in high school biology, about how recessive genes doubled when close relatives reproduced, about how the risks increased exponentially. Lily seemed fine, healthy and bright and developing normally. But what about later? What hidden genetic time bombs might be waiting? What complications might emerge as she grew older? And what about more children? He and Emma had talked about having another baby. Emma wanted a boy. Daniel wanted Lily to have a sibling. They'd been planning to start trying next year. They couldn't now, obviously. Even if they somehow stayed together after this revelation, they couldn't risk having another child. The genetic risks were too high. The ethical implications too severe. Daniel forced himself to pick up the letter again, to finish reading, to know everything before he had to face Emma and figure out what came next. By the time I realized I'd made a terrible mistake, it was too late, Rose had written. You'd been married a year. Emma was pregnant. I couldn't tell you then. Couldn't destroy your marriage when a baby was coming. So I stayed silent. I prayed. I asked God to protect your child, to let her be born healthy despite the circumstances. And he did. Lily is perfect. A blessing despite the sin that created her. Lily was not a sin. Daniel felt anger surge through him for the first time since finding the letter. Lily was innocent. Whatever mistakes the adults had made, his daughter bore no blame. She was perfect and loved and wanted. The circumstances of her conception didn't change that, but the circumstances did complicate everything. If Daniel and Emma divorced, when they divorced, because how could they stay married knowing what they knew? How would they explain it to Lily? How did you tell a child that her parents couldn't be together because they were actually cousins, that their love story was actually a tragedy built on family silence and unknown bloodlines? I'm telling you this now because you deserve the truth, Rose continued, and because I'm old and dying and I can't face God with this sin unconfessed. I know this will hurt you. I know it will destroy your marriage. I know you'll hate me for my silence, but I pray you'll understand that I thought I was protecting you. I thought love was more important than biology. I was wrong. Was she wrong? Daniel didn't know anymore. Part of him wanted to burn the letter, pretend he'd never found it, go home to Emma and Lily and continue living the lie. They were happy. Their marriage was good. They loved each other deeply. Did biology really matter if everything else was right? But he knew it did matter. Legally, morally, genetically. You couldn't just ignore blood relationships because acknowledging them was inconvenient. The law existed for reasons. The taboos existed for reasons. First cousins weren't supposed to marry because the risks, genetic, psychological, social, were too high, and everyone had known. That was the part that made Daniel's blood boil. His father had known. His grandmother had known. Emma's mother had known. Probably other relatives too. All of them had watched Daniel and Emma fall in love, get engaged, get married, have a child. All of them had stayed silent. For 5 years, Daniel's entire family had been complicit in a lie, had let him live in ignorance while they carried the truth. Every family dinner, every holiday gathering, every celebration, everyone smiling and pretending while knowing the terrible secret. The betrayal was comprehensive, total. It wasn't just one person who'd lied. It was everyone. The entire family structure Daniel had trusted his whole life had been rotten at the foundation. Your Uncle James is the key to all of this, the letter said. He left home in 1972. He was 18. He'd gotten a girl pregnant, Emma's mother, Carol, and our parents demanded he marry her. He refused, said he didn't love her, said he wouldn't be trapped. So he left, disappeared. We didn't hear from him for decades. Daniel had never known any of this, had never known Uncle James had gotten someone pregnant, had never known that Emma's mother, Carol, had been connected to the Foster family long before Emma and Daniel met. Carol raised Emma alone. She was bitter about it, angry at James for abandoning them. She changed her last name back to her maiden name, Phillips. Gave Emma that name too. She wanted nothing to do with the Foster family, wanted to erase James completely from their lives. So Emma was born Emma Phillips. No connection to the Foster name, no way for anyone to trace her lineage back to James Foster without someone explicitly making the connection. Carol moved to a different state when Emma was a baby, cut off all contact with anyone who knew James, started over completely. She did such a good job erasing their past that even Emma didn't know who her father was. Carol told her he was just some guy, a mistake, nothing worth discussing. And then, 25 years later, Emma had moved back to their home state for college, had met Daniel purely by chance, had fallen in love with her first cousin without anyone telling her the truth. When you brought Emma to meet us, I should have told you immediately, but I looked at your face, you were so happy, so in love, and I thought, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe biology isn't destiny. Maybe love can overcome anything. But love couldn't overcome genetics, couldn't overcome law. Couldn't overcome the fundamental wrongness of marrying a close blood relative. I know you're angry. You have every right to be. I've failed you in the worst possible way. But please, Daniel, don't let my sin destroy what you and Emma have built. She's innocent in all this. She doesn't know. Her mother never told her. You can't blame her for something she had no control over. Emma didn't know. That realization hit Daniel like a freight train. Emma had no idea. She thought their meeting was chance, thought their connection was special, thought she'd married the love of her life. She'd actually married her cousin, and Daniel was going to have to be the one to tell her, was going to have to watch her face as he explained that their marriage was illegal, that their daughter was the product of incest, that everything she thought she knew about their relationship was a lie. How do you do that? How do you destroy someone you love by telling them a truth they never asked for and couldn't have prevented? Daniel looked at his phone, at Emma's missed call, at the text that had come through while he was reading, "Are you okay? Getting worried? Call me when you can." He couldn't call her, couldn't face her. Not yet. Not until he'd figured out what he was going to say, how he was going to explain the inexplicable. If this story has touched you so far, please leave your like, share in the comments if you've ever discovered a family secret that changed everything, and send this to someone who needs to know that truth, no matter how devastating, deserves to be told. Silence may feel like protection, but it's actually poison. Daniel called his father. Frank Foster answered on the second ring, his voice cautious. He knew. Of course he knew. He'd been waiting for this call for 5 years. "Dad, I found the letter. In Grandma's Bible." Silence on the other end. Then a heavy sigh. "Damn it, Mom, she promised she'd burn it. She left it for me to find. In Leviticus. In the chapter about forbidden relationships. She wanted me to know." "Daniel, I can explain. You knew." Daniel's voice was flat, cold. "You knew I was marrying my cousin, and you said nothing. Your grandmother begged me not to tell you. She said, I don't care what she said. You knew, and you let me do it anyway. You stood up at my wedding and gave a toast about how happy you were. You held Lily when she was born and didn't say a word. How could you do that? How could you lie to me for 5 years?" Frank was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. "Because I love you. Because I watched you fall in love with Emma, and I'd never seen you that happy. Because I knew telling you would destroy that happiness. So I made a choice. Maybe the wrong choice, but a choice I made out of love." "Love?" Daniel laughed bitterly. "You call lying to me love? I call protecting you love. I call letting you have 5 years of happiness love. Because, Daniel, what would knowing have changed? You would have still loved Emma. She would have still loved you. All the truth would have done was make you both miserable. We're first cousins. That's illegal in most states. That's incest." "You didn't know," Frank said. "Neither did Emma. You can't commit incest unknowingly. Incest requires knowledge, intent. What you and Emma have is it's just unfortunate genetics. Bad luck, not evil, not sin." Grandma Rose seemed to think it was sin. She left the letter in Leviticus. Mom felt guilty. She was religious, old-fashioned. She believed in biblical law more than common sense. But Daniel, you need to understand, first cousins marrying isn't as taboo as you think. It's legal in many countries. It was common throughout history. The genetic risks are lower than most people believe. So I'm just supposed to ignore this, pretend I didn't find out? Yes. Frank's voice was firm. That's exactly what you should do. Burn the letter. Forget you read it. Go home to your wife and daughter and live your life. Nothing has changed except you now have information you didn't need. Everything has changed. I can't unknow this. Then you're choosing to let it change things. Daniel, listen to me. Emma is not just your cousin. She's your wife, the woman you chose, the mother of your child. Your grandmother made a mistake in telling you. Don't compound that mistake by destroying your family over biology. Daniel wanted to rage at his father, to hang up, to cut off everyone who'd conspired to hide the truth. But Frank's words had a terrible logic to them. What would knowing change? He loved Emma. He'd always love Emma. Learning she was his cousin didn't alter his feelings, didn't erase 5 years of marriage, didn't make their connection less real, but it made everything illegal, immoral, wrong. "Does Uncle James know?" Daniel asked. "Does he know I married his daughter?" Another pause. "Yes, James knows." "How? When did he find out?" "He reached out about 2 years ago. After decades of silence, he suddenly wanted to reconnect. Wanted to apologize for leaving. I told him it was too late, that he'd abandoned his daughter, that she'd built a life without him. He asked about her. I told him she was married, happy. He asked who she'd married, and Frank's voice broke. I told him the truth, that she'd married you, my son, his nephew. He was horrified. Wanted to tell you both immediately. I convinced him not to. Told him it would only cause pain. So James knew too. Another person in the conspiracy of silence. Another adult who decided Daniel and Emma were better off ignorant. Where is he? James. Where is he now? I don't know. He called from different numbers. Never gave an address. He's been drifting for years. Construction work mostly. Moving from job to job. He's not someone you'd want to know, Daniel. He's been through a lot. Addiction. Jail time. He's not the uncle you'd want to meet. But he was Lily's grandfather. Emma's father. The missing piece of their family puzzle. And he knew the truth that everyone else had hidden. I need his number. Daniel, I don't think... Give me his number, please. Frank gave him a phone number. He might not answer. He's not reliable. But if you insist on doing this, at least think about what you're going to say first. Think about whether telling Emma will help or hurt. Daniel hung up without responding. He stared at the number in his phone. Uncle James, the black sheep. The man who'd abandoned Emma before she was born. The man whose choices had set all of this in motion. If James had married Carol back in 1972 like his parents wanted, Daniel and Emma would have known they were cousins from birth, would never have met as strangers, would never have fallen in love, would never have married, but James had refused, had walked away, had left Carol to raise Emma alone with a different last name and no connection to the Foster family, had created the perfect conditions for Daniel and Emma to meet years later, completely unaware of their relationship. Was that James's fault? Or was it just bad luck? Just the universe's cruel joke on two people who'd done nothing wrong except love each other? Daniel looked at Rose's letter again. At the final paragraph, he hadn't read yet. I know you'll want to tell Emma. You'll want to be honest with her. But Daniel, please consider this. Emma has built her entire adult identity on being Mrs. Foster, on being your wife, on being Lily's mother. Telling her the truth will destroy all of that. It will make her question everything. It will ruin her relationship with her mother, who also kept silent. It will devastate her. Rose was right about that. Emma would be destroyed. She'd trusted Daniel completely, trusted that their relationship was real and right and good. Finding out she'd married her cousin would shatter that trust, would make her question whether their connection was real or just some unconscious genetic attraction, would taint every memory, every moment, every intimate encounter. Only you can decide what to do, Rose concluded, but whatever you choose, know that I love you. I've always loved you, and I'm sorry. I'm so deeply sorry for my silence. May God forgive me, because I know you probably never will. Grandma Rose. Daniel folded the letter carefully and put it back in the Bible. He looked around Rose's bedroom one last time, at the photographs of a family built on secrets, at the evidence of decades of silence and careful lies. Then he left, drove home, prepared to make the hardest decision of his life. Tell Emma and destroy everything, or stay silent and become part of the conspiracy himself. Daniel sat in his car in the driveway of his own house for 20 minutes. Through the window he could see Emma moving around the kitchen. She was making dinner, their normal Tuesday routine. Lily was probably in the living room watching cartoons. Everything looked exactly as it should. Normal, safe, right. But it was all built on a lie everyone had agreed to maintain. Could he do the same? Could he walk through that door, kiss his wife, hug his daughter, and pretend he didn't know the truth? Could he live the rest of his life carrying this secret the way his father had, the way his grandmother had? His phone buzzed. A text from Emma. I can see you sitting in the car. Are you okay? Do you need me to come out? No. He couldn't face her in the car, couldn't break down in the driveway where neighbors might see. He had to go inside, had to act normal until he figured out what normal even meant anymore. He texted back, coming in now. Sorry, got lost in thought. Emma met him at the door. She was beautiful as always. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, one of his old t-shirts and yoga pants. No makeup, just naturally lovely. His wife, his cousin. You okay? She touched his face gently. You look terrible. Long day. Sorting through Grandma's things was harder than I expected. Of course it was. She practically raised you. Emma pulled him into a hug. She smelled like vanilla and home, like everything good in his life. I'm sorry, babe. I know you loved her. Loved her. Past tense. But Daniel's love for Rose was complicated now. She'd loved him too, but she'd also betrayed him in the worst possible way. Both things were true simultaneously. "Daddy!" Lily came running from the living room and launched herself at Daniel's legs. He picked her up automatically, hugging her tight. She was solid and real and perfect. His daughter, the product of incest. Both things true, both things devastating. "I made cookies, Daddy. Chocolate chip. Mummy said I did really good." "You did great, sweetheart. Really great." Daniel's voice cracked slightly. Emma noticed but didn't comment. They had dinner. Normal Tuesday spaghetti and meatballs. Lily chatted about preschool and her best friend Sophie and the ladybug she'd seen in the backyard. Emma talked about her work. She was a graphic designer, freelancing from home so she could be with Lily. Daniel made appropriate sounds, but couldn't follow the conversation. His mind was elsewhere. After dinner, after Lily was in bed, Emma cornered him in their bedroom. "Okay, what's really wrong? You've been weird since you got home. I found something at Grandma's house, a letter, addressed to me." Emma sat on the bed. What did it say? This was it, the moment of decision. Tell her or don't. Destroy everything or become part of the lie. Daniel pulled the letter from his jacket pocket. He'd carried it home like evidence, like proof of the crime everyone had committed against him. "Before you read this, I need you to know. I love you, no matter what. That doesn't change." Emma's face went pale. "You're scaring me. What's in the letter? Just read it." Daniel handed her the pages and sat beside her, watched her face as she read, watched confusion turn to horror, turn to disbelief. "This can't be real," she whispered. Daniel, this has to be a mistake. Your grandmother was old." She was confused. This can't be true." "It's true. I called my dad. He confirmed it. He's known since before our wedding. Your mother knows too. My grandmother knew. Uncle James knows. Everyone except us." Emma stood abruptly. "My mother knows. Carol knows." Her voice was rising, hysteria creeping in. "She let me marry my cousin. She watched me have a baby with my cousin." "Emma, calm down. Don't tell me to calm down." She was pacing now, hands shaking. "We're first cousins, Daniel. First cousins. Do you understand what that means? Our marriage is illegal. Lily. Oh God, Lily. Lily is fine. She's healthy and perfect and fine. But what if she's not? What if there are genetic problems we don't know about yet? What if—" Emma pressed her hands to her face. "I'm going to be sick." She ran to the bathroom. Daniel heard her retching. He sat on the bed, numb, listening to his wife vomit as she processed the same information that had destroyed him hours earlier. When Emma finally emerged, her face was blotchy and tear-streaked. "We have to divorce, obviously. We can't stay married. It's illegal." "It's only illegal in some states. In others, first-cousin marriage is perfectly legal. I don't care about legal technicalities. It's wrong, Daniel. We share grandparents. We share DNA. We're family. We're also husband and wife, parents to Lily, people who love each other. That's real too. How can you be so calm about this?" Emma was crying now, huge tears streaming down her face. "Our entire relationship is a lie. Everything we thought we knew about how we met, how we fell in love, it's all tainted now." "Nothing is tainted. We didn't know. We fell in love honestly. The biology doesn't change what we felt, what we feel. It changes everything." Emma's voice broke. I can't even look at you right now without seeing my cousin instead of my husband. Don't you get that? You're not just Daniel anymore. You're Daniel, my cousin. And I'm not just Emma. I'm Emma who married her cousin like some hillbilly stereotype. That's not fair. We didn't know. But everyone else did. Your father knew. Your grandmother knew. My mother knew. They all knew, and they said nothing. They let us get married. Let us have a baby. Let us build a life based on a lie. Emma grabbed her phone. "I'm calling my mother. Right now. She's going to explain why she did this." Daniel didn't try to stop her. He listened as Emma called Carol, as the conversation quickly devolved into screaming and accusations and tears. Emma's mother tried to defend herself, tried to explain that she thought Emma was better off not knowing, that the past didn't matter, that love was more important than biology, the same rationalizations everyone had used, the same excuses for maintaining the lie. Emma hung up on her mother mid-sentence. She knew. She's known the whole time. She saw your family at our wedding and she knew immediately. And she said nothing because she was embarrassed, because she didn't want to admit that she'd had a baby with James Foster, that she'd been abandoned by your uncle. So she protected herself at our expense, Daniel said. They all did. Every single adult in our lives chose their own comfort over our truth. Emma sank onto the bed. What do we do now? How do we move forward from this? They didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. Just lay in bed next to each other, not touching, staring at the ceiling as their entire world collapsed around them. Emma cried until she had no tears left. Daniel held her until she pushed him away, saying she couldn't bear to be touched by him. Not right now. Maybe not ever. Morning came too soon. Lily woke them at 6:30, bouncing on the bed, asking for breakfast, acting like everything was normal because for her, it was. She didn't know yet. Didn't understand that her parents were cousins, that their marriage was wrong, that her entire family structure was about to implode. Emma made breakfast mechanically, pancakes that she burned because she couldn't focus. Lily ate them anyway, chattering happily while her parents sat in stunned silence. "Mommy, why are you sad?" Lily asked eventually. "Did something happen?" "Mommy's just tired, sweetie," Emma managed. "Didn't sleep well. Daddy can make you feel better. He always makes you feel better." Lily's innocent observation was a knife to both their hearts. After breakfast, Emma took Lily to preschool. Daniel used the time alone to call Uncle James. The phone rang 6 times before someone answered. "Yeah?" The voice was rough, weathered by decades of hard living. "Uncle James, it's Daniel. Daniel Foster." A long pause. "Jesus, I wondered when you'd call. Your dad tell you?" "Grandma Rose did. She left me a letter, confessing everything." "Probably good. Secret like that, it eats you alive. Trust me, I know. Why didn't you tell me? When you found out I'd married Emma?" James laughed bitterly. "And say what? Hey, nephew, remember how I abandoned my daughter 30 years ago? Well, you married her. That would have gone over real well. It would have been better than this. Better than letting us live a lie for years. Maybe. Or maybe you would have been miserable knowing the truth. Sometimes ignorance really is bliss, kid. Don't call me kid. And don't pretend you stayed silent for my benefit. You stayed silent because you're a coward who spent his entire life running away from consequences." "You're not wrong," James admitted. "I am a coward. Always have been. That's why I left Carol pregnant. That's why I never tried to meet Emma. That's why I didn't tell you when I found out. I'm good at running away, not so good at facing hard truths. Well, I can't run away. I have a wife, a cousin, and a daughter. I have to deal with this." "What are you going to do?" James asked. "Divorce?" "I don't know. Emma wants to. She can barely look at me right now. She's in shock. Give her time. Once the initial horror wears off, she'll remember that you love each other, that you've built a life together, that biology doesn't define everything." Says the man who abandoned his daughter because of biology. James was quiet for a moment. "You're right. I have no room to talk. I destroyed Emma's life by leaving. Destroyed yours by not telling the truth when I had the chance. I'm not the person you should be taking advice from. Then why am I talking to you? Because I'm the only person who understands what Carol went through, the only person who can tell you why she stayed silent." Daniel waited. He didn't want to hear excuses, but he needed to understand, needed to know how this conspiracy of silence had been maintained for so long. "Carol loved you," James said. "I mean, she loved me back in 1972. Really loved me. She thought we'd get married, raise our baby together, have a normal life. When I left, it destroyed her. She spent years angry at me, angry at herself for trusting me, angry at the universe for making her a single mother. That doesn't explain why she let Emma marry me. I'm getting there. Carol raised Emma to be independent, strong, to never rely on a man the way she'd relied on me. She taught Emma that family was just DNA, that real connection was about choice, not blood. She deliberately kept Emma away from the Foster family, changed her name, moved states, built a completely new life. So when Emma fell in love with me, she didn't know, had no reason to suspect. The Foster name meant nothing to her. Carol had never told her who her father was, never showed her pictures. Emma met you as a stranger, fell in love honestly. By the time Carol saw you at the wedding, saw your father, made the connection, it was too late. Emma was already married, already pregnant, already building a life. So Carol chose to stay silent to protect Emma from the truth. Exactly. She thought, wrongly, that ignorance would protect her daughter, that Emma was better off happy and unknowing than miserable and informed. She made the same choice your grandmother made, the same choice your father made. They all loved you both too much to destroy your happiness. The first revelation crashed over Daniel then. Everyone had stayed silent out of love. Twisted, misguided love, but love nonetheless. They'd all thought they were protecting Daniel and Emma, sparing them pain, letting them live in happiness even if that happiness was built on ignorance. It was the wrong choice. Obviously wrong, but it came from love, not malice. Did that make it forgivable? Daniel didn't know. "I need to meet you," Daniel said suddenly. "Face to face, you're Lily's grandfather, Emma's father. You're part of this whether you like it or not. I don't think that's a good idea. I don't care what you think. You owe Emma 33 years of fatherhood. You owe me an explanation that actually makes sense. You owe all of us the truth we've been denied. Where are you?" James gave him an address, a construction site 3 hours away. "I'm working until 6. Come after that if you want. But Daniel, prepare yourself. I'm not the uncle you've imagined. I'm not someone you'll want your daughter to know. Let me be the judge of that." Daniel hung up and sat in the quiet house. Everything was falling apart. His marriage, his family, his understanding of who he was and where he came from. But maybe in the rubble he could build something real, something honest, something that didn't require lies and silence to maintain. Emma came home an hour later. She'd been driving, she said. Just driving around, trying to clear her head. She looked exhausted, defeated. "I talked to Uncle James," Daniel said. "I'm going to meet him tonight, 3 hours away. Do you want to come?" Emma looked at him like he was crazy. "Why would I want to meet the father who abandoned me?" "Because he's the key to all of this. Because he can explain why your mother stayed silent. Because you deserve answers just like I do." "I don't want answers. I want to go back to yesterday when I didn't know any of this." "We can't go back. We can only go forward." "Forward to what? Divorce? Separation? Pretending we're not related?" Emma's voice was sharp with pain. "There is no forward, Daniel. There's just destruction. Or there's acceptance. Emma, we can't change what happened. We can't unknow this. But we can decide what to do with the information. We can decide whether biology matters more than love. Of course biology matters. We're first cousins." "So we didn't know. We fell in love honestly. We've been married 5 years. We have a daughter. We've built a good life. Why should we destroy all of that because of genetic information we couldn't have known?" "Because it's wrong, Daniel. Marrying your cousin is wrong." "Says who? The law?" "The law is different in every state. Some places it's fine, some places it's not." "The Bible?" "The Bible has examples of cousins marrying. Medieval royalty did it constantly. It's only in modern America that it became this huge taboo. Are you actually defending this? Are you saying we should just ignore that we're related?" "I'm saying we should decide what matters more. Biology we can't control or love we chose. I'm saying maybe everyone who stayed silent was right. Maybe we were better off not knowing." Emma stared at him. "You've lost your mind." "Maybe. Or maybe I'm the only one thinking clearly. Emma, I love you. That hasn't changed. Has your love for me changed just because you know we share DNA? I don't know. I can't separate the feelings anymore. I look at you and all I see is my cousin. Then look harder. See your husband. See Lily's father. See the man you chose to build a life with. See me, Emma, not the biology. Me." Emma agreed to go with Daniel to meet James. Not because she wanted to, she said, but because she needed closure. Needed to confront the man whose choices had set all of this in motion. Needed to rage at someone besides Daniel. They left Lily with Emma's best friend Rachel, who asked no questions but looked worried. "Are you two okay?" she'd asked. Emma had just shaken her head and walked away. The drive was silent. 3 hours of tension so thick Daniel could barely breathe. Emma sat in the passenger seat staring out the window, her arms crossed protectively across her chest. Every attempt Daniel made at conversation was met with monosyllables or silence. They arrived at the construction site at 6:15. Workers were packing up for the day. Daniel spotted James immediately, tall, weathered, moving with the careful deliberation of someone whose body had been broken by hard work and put back together wrong. James saw them and froze. Then he walked over slowly, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Emma." His voice cracked on her name. "Jesus. You look just like your mother did at your age." Emma's face was stone. And apparently I look like you too. The Foster genes are strong, everyone says. That's how Grandma Rose knew. That's how Daniel's father knew. Everyone could see I was a Foster except me. I'm sorry, I know that doesn't mean anything, but I'm sorry. For leaving your mother, for not being there. For all of it. You don't get to apologize to me. You lost that right 33 years ago. James nodded, accepting the judgment. Fair enough. What do you want from me, then? Why come all this way? Answers, Daniel said. We want to know why everyone stayed silent, why you didn't tell us when you found out. I already explained that to you on the phone. Explain it to Emma. She deserves to hear it from you. So James told his story again, about leaving Carol pregnant, about the years of drifting and guilt, about finding out his daughter had married his nephew and being too much of a coward to intervene. He spoke plainly, without making excuses, accepting full responsibility for his failures. Emma listened without interrupting. When James finished, she said coldly, You destroyed my life twice. Once when you abandoned me. Once when you stayed silent when you should have spoken. How am I supposed to forgive that? You're not. I don't deserve forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I thought about you every day. Wondered what you were like. Hoped you were okay. For what it's worth nothing. You were a thought to yourself, but you were an absence to me. A hole in my life. A question I could never answer. Emma's voice broke. And now I find out you were there all along. In my husband's family. In my daughter's DNA. You were never really gone. You were just hiding. James flinched. You're right. About all of it. I'm a coward. Always have been. Do you have other children? Emma asked suddenly. Other kids you abandoned? Other families you destroyed? No. Just you. I learned my lesson about reproduction after I left your mother. Lucky them. The second revelation hit then, slamming into Emma with devastating force. She'd spent her entire life wondering about her father, building him into either a villain or a mystery, but he was neither. He was just a weak man who'd made bad choices, and then spent decades running from the consequences. He wasn't special, wasn't important. He was just sad and broken and ordinary. And understanding that didn't make Emma feel better. It made her feel worse. Because all the pain, all the wondering, all the feeling incomplete, it had been over someone who wasn't even worth the energy. What do you want from me? James asked. You came here for a reason. What do you need? I need you to tell me we should divorce, Emma said. Tell me that Daniel and I can't stay married now that we know the truth. Tell me I'm not crazy for wanting to end this. James looked uncomfortable. I can't tell you that. Why not? You abandoned my mother when she got pregnant. Clearly you think some relationships aren't worth fighting for. That was different. I didn't love your mother. Not really. I was 18 and scared and stupid. But you and Daniel, you love each other. I can see it even now, even with all this tension. You built something real. Why would you throw that away over genetics you can't control? Because it's wrong. Says who? James challenged. Look, I'm not educated, I'm not smart. But I know this. Love is rare. Real love, the kind that lasts, that survives hard times, that builds families, that's precious. You and Daniel have that. You want to throw it away because you share a grandfather. Because some law says you're too closely related. That seems stupid to me. You have no right to give relationship advice, Emma said. You've never maintained a relationship in your life. Exactly. Which is why I know what you have is valuable. I've spent 40 years alone because I was too chicken shit to commit to anyone. I destroyed my one chance at family. Don't make the same mistake. Daniel had been quiet, letting Emma and James talk. Now he spoke up. Emma, I know you're angry. I'm angry too. But James is right about one thing. We do love each other. That's real. The question is whether we let biology override everything else we've built. It's not just biology, Daniel. It's the lies, the conspiracy. Everyone knowing except us. How am I supposed to trust anyone ever again? You can't trust them, James said bluntly. Your mother, Daniel's father, his grandmother, they all chose silence over truth. They betrayed you both, but that doesn't mean you have to betray each other. You can choose differently. You can choose honesty going forward, even if you can't undo the dishonesty of the past. Emma looked at James, really looked at him, seeing not the father she'd imagined, but the flawed human being standing in front of her. Do you want to meet Lily, your granddaughter? James's eyes filled with tears. More than anything, but only if you want that. Only if you think it won't hurt her. I don't know what will hurt her anymore. I don't know anything. Emma turned to Daniel. We should go. This was a mistake. They drove home in the same tense silence. But something had shifted. Emma's anger wasn't just directed at Daniel anymore. It was spreading outward, to her mother, to Daniel's family, to James, to the universe, for putting them in this impossible situation. "I can't decide tonight," she said as they pulled into their driveway. "I need time, space, to figure out if I can still see you as my husband or if you'll always just be my cousin now. Take all the time you need. I'll sleep in the guest room. I'll give you space. Thank you." Emma paused with her hand on the car door. "Daniel, I do still love you. I want you to know that. I'm so confused and hurt, and I don't know if love is enough to overcome this. I understand. I'm confused too. But Emma, whatever you decide, we need to think about Lily. She's innocent in all this. We can't let our problems hurt her. I know. She's the only thing that makes sense right now." 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of Daniel sleeping in the guest room. 2 weeks of careful politeness and avoiding eye contact. 2 weeks of both of them trying to figure out how to move forward. Emma had started seeing a therapist. Daniel had joined her for 2 sessions. They'd talked about genetics and taboos and the difference between knowing incest and unknowing incest. The therapist had been surprisingly pragmatic. "You're in an impossible situation," she'd said. "But here's what I know. You committed no crime. You didn't know you were related. You fell in love honestly. Your marriage, while technically illegal in this state, was entered into in good faith. And your daughter is healthy and loved. Those are facts." "But we're still cousins," Emma had said. "That doesn't change." "No, but what does change is your understanding of what that means. First cousin marriage is taboo in American culture, but it's accepted in many others. The genetic risks are lower than you think, about the same as a woman having a baby after 40. Your daughter is fine. Future children would likely be fine too. So you're saying we should just ignore that we're related? I'm saying you need to decide what matters more to you, cultural taboos or personal happiness. There's no right answer, just the answer that's right for you both." Emma had been thinking about those sessions constantly, about cultural taboos versus personal happiness, about what really mattered. She'd talked to her mother again, a long, painful conversation where Carol had apologized repeatedly, had explained her reasoning, had begged Emma not to let this destroy her marriage. "You love him," Carol had said. "He loves you. You have a beautiful daughter. Why throw all that away because I made a mistake 33 years ago? Because James made a mistake 40 years ago? Don't let our sins destroy your happiness." Emma had talked to Rachel too, her best friend since college. Rachel knew everything now. Emma had told her the whole story, desperate for advice from someone outside the family conspiracy. Rachel's response had been unexpected. "Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but hear me out. What if everyone was right? What? What if your mom and Daniel's dad and his grandmother were all right to keep quiet? What if some secrets are actually better left buried? How can you say that? They lied to us for years. They protected you for years. Emma, think about it. You and Daniel are happy. You have a great marriage, a beautiful daughter, a good life. If no one had ever told you about the cousin thing, you would have just kept on being happy. Now you know, and you're miserable. How is that better? Because it's true, truth matters. Does it? Does it really? Or is happiness what matters?" Rachel had leaned forward intently. "Look, I'm not saying lying is good, but I am saying that sometimes, rarely, but sometimes, ignorance actually is better. You were happy, you could still be happy if you chose to be." Emma had been thinking about that conversation too, about happiness versus truth, about whether you could have both when they contradicted each other. Now, 2 weeks later, she called Daniel into the living room. He came immediately, hope and fear warring on his face. "I've made a decision," she said. "Sit down." Daniel sat. Emma stayed standing, needing the psychological advantage. "I've thought about this constantly. Talked to therapists and friends and my mother. I've researched first cousin marriage. I've looked at the genetics. I've considered everything." She paused. "And I've decided I can't do this. I can't stay married to you knowing what I know." Daniel's face crumpled. "Emma, let me finish. I can't stay married to you as things are. But I also can't not be married to you. You're my best friend, my partner, Lily's father, the love of my life. So here's what I've decided." She sat down beside him, took his hand for the first time in 2 weeks. "We're going to get divorced. Legally, quietly. We'll file papers, make it official that we're no longer married. That takes care of the legal problems, the fact that our marriage is illegal in this state." Daniel started to protest, but Emma held up her hand. Then we're going to keep living together, as partners, as Lily's parents, as people who love each other. We just won't be legally married anymore. We'll be, I don't know, committed partners who happen to share DNA. That's actually brilliant, Daniel said slowly. It solves the legal problem. It acknowledges the biological reality. But it doesn't require us to destroy what we've built. We can tell people we divorced for personal reasons. No one needs to know the real reason. And we can keep living our lives mostly the same way. What about more children? We'd talked about having another baby. Emma had thought about this too. No more biological children. The genetic risks are low, but they exist. I'm not willing to risk another pregnancy. But, she squeezed his hand, we could adopt. Give Lily a sibling that way. If you want to. What about Lily? What do we tell her? The truth. Someday. When she's old enough to understand. We tell her that Mommy and Daddy loved each other very much, but we were related in a way that made marriage complicated. That we chose love over legality. That she was created in love even if the circumstances were unusual. If you've made it this far in this story, if you understand that love and family are more complex than law or custom, please share it. Like this video. Comment with your thoughts about impossible choices and unconventional solutions, because sometimes the bravest thing we can do is write our own rules when society's rules don't fit our reality. Daniel pulled Emma into a hug. She let him. For the first time in 2 weeks, she let herself be held by him without thinking about genetics or taboos or anything except the fact that he felt like home. I love you, he said into her hair. I never stopped loving you. I know, I love you too. That's why I'm choosing this. It's not perfect, it doesn't solve everything, but it lets us keep what matters while acknowledging the truth. They sat together in silence for a while. Then Emma said, I called James, invited him to meet Lily. He's coming next weekend. How do you feel about that? Terrified, angry, hopeful, all of it at once. He's still her grandfather, still my father, even if he was absent. Lily deserves to know her family, even the complicated parts. What about my dad and your mum? They're on probation. I'm still angry at them for lying, but they're also Lily's grandparents. They love her. They love us. So eventually, I'll forgive them, just not today. Fair enough. They filed for divorce 3 days later. Quietly, through a lawyer who asked no questions, the papers cited irreconcilable differences. No one except the lawyer knew the real reason. Within 2 months, Daniel and Emma Foster were legally divorced. But nothing else changed. Daniel didn't move out. They kept sharing a bedroom, kept parenting Lily together, kept loving each other in all the ways that mattered. They just weren't legally married anymore. Their families were confused but accepted it. Friends assumed they were going through a rough patch, but trying to keep it amicable for Lily's sake. No one pushed for details. No one knew the secret, except the conspiracy of silence that had started it all. James met Lily 6 months after the divorce. It was awkward at first. How do you introduce your 3-year-old daughter to the grandfather she didn't know existed? But Lily was resilient. She accepted that Grandpa James was someone who lived far away and came to visit sometimes, that he brought her presents and told her stories and looked at her like she was the most precious thing in the world. James turned out to be good with kids, despite his many failures with adults. He was patient with Lily, gentle. He taught her how to build things with his old tools, how to identify birds. Simple grandfather things that filled a space neither Emma nor Daniel had known was empty. Slowly, painfully, Emma began forgiving the adults who'd stayed silent. She understood their reasoning, even if she didn't agree with their choices. They thought they were protecting her and Daniel. They'd chosen love over truth, comfort over honesty. It was the wrong choice, but it came from love. Daniel forgave them more easily. He'd always been more pragmatic, more willing to accept that people were flawed and made mistakes. He'd forgiven his father within a month. His grandmother, well, she was dead, so forgiveness felt easier. She couldn't defend herself or make new mistakes. A year after finding the letter, Daniel and Emma sat on their back porch, watching Lily play in the yard. They weren't married legally, but they wore their wedding rings. They still called each other husband and wife. They'd just added X as a technicality in legal documents. Do you ever regret knowing? Daniel asked. Regret that Grandma Rose left that letter? Emma thought about it. Sometimes ignorance was easier, but she looked at Lily. I think knowing is better, even if it hurt, even if it complicated everything. because now we're making informed choices. We're choosing this relationship with full knowledge instead of partial truth. We're choosing each other. Yes, we're choosing each other, despite everything, maybe because of everything. They sat in comfortable silence. Not the tense silence of those first weeks, but the easy silence of people who knew each other completely, who'd been through hell together and come out the other side still holding hands. Their solution wasn't perfect. It wasn't conventional, but it was theirs, built on honesty and choice, and the radical idea that love could overcome even the most complicated circumstances. Years later, when Lily was old enough to understand, they told her the truth, sat her down at 16 and explained that Mommy and Daddy were first cousins, that they'd divorced legally but stayed together, that she was born from love even if the circumstances were unusual. Lily had taken it surprisingly well. She'd asked questions, done research, talked to her school counselor, and then she'd said, "So basically you guys loved each other so much you didn't let anything stop you, even when everyone said you should. That's actually kind of romantic." Daniel and Emma had laughed, cried, hugged their daughter who'd somehow grown up to be wiser than both of them. "Are you okay with this?" Emma had asked. "With having parents who are related?" "Mom, you raised me to believe love is a choice. That family is about more than biology. You and Dad chose each other every day despite everything working against you. That's not shameful, that's brave." And maybe Lily was right. Maybe what Daniel and Emma had wasn't an abomination, but something else entirely. A testament to choosing love over convention, to writing your own rules when society's rules didn't fit, to building something real from impossible circumstances. The letter Rose had left had destroyed their innocence, but it had also given them the chance to rebuild their relationship on truth instead of ignorance, to choose each other with full knowledge, to prove that love, real, conscious, informed love, could overcome even genetic complications and cultural taboos. They kept Rose's letter, stored it away with their important documents. Someday maybe it would matter to Lily's children, or maybe it would just be a relic of a complicated time. Either way, it was part of their history, part of how they became who they were. A family built on truth, even when the truth was devastating. A love that survived revelation. A choice made every day to stay together despite every reason to walk away. It wasn't the story they'd imagined, but it was their story, real and messy and beautiful in its imperfection, and that was enough.